Picture a young soldier somewhere in the sodden lowlands of occupied Europe, 1943. Rain hammers the canvas of his bivouac. Mud swallows his boots whole. Around him the world is decomposing. Wood rots, metal rusts, and paper dissolves back into the earth from which it came. But tucked beneath his tunic, sealed against his skin in a tiny hand-stitched pouch no larger than a playing card, are two photographs. His mother, his girl back home, perfectly dry, perfectly preserved, kept alive by nothing more than ingenuity, a needle, a length of waxed thread, and the desperate human need to hold on to something worth fighting for. This is the story of that technique, and why it still matters today. Long before a soldier ever reached the front, he understood one brutal truth. The war would destroy everything it touched. Uniforms disintegrated, boots split at the seams, rations rotted, and photographs, those fragile paper windows to another world, were among the first casualties of sustained field exposure. The combination of body sweat, torrential rainfall, river crossings and condensation pooling inside kit bags turned cherished letters and images into grey pulp within days. Standard military-issue oilskin pouches existed, but they were often reserved for maps and official documents. The ordinary infantryman had to improvise, and improvise he did, drawing on generations of rural working-class knowledge that had never been written down in any field manual. Seamstresses' sons, fishermen's brothers, farmers' boys, they carried needle skills into the field and adapted them into something extraordinary under the worst possible conditions imaginable. The core of this technique was deceptively simple: a small envelope pouch, hand-stitched from salvaged canvas or dense cotton cloth, then treated with a combination of beeswax and rendered animal fat, often scraped from ration tins or traded for cigarettes. Soldiers would cut their fabric from worn trouser linings or the inner panels of gas mask bags, materials dense enough to resist capillary wicking. The seams were stitched not once but twice, using a modified sailmaker's stitch, a double running stitch, pulled tight with beeswax-coated thread that effectively sealed each puncture hole the needle made as it passed through the weave. The wax acted as a gasket, filling the microscopic gaps between thread and fibre, creating a near-waterproof barrier without any modern synthetic material whatsoever. Once stitched, the pouch was rubbed down firmly with a solid block of beeswax, often bartered from engineers who used it to lubricate equipment, and then gently heated near a lamp or candle flame, allowing the wax to liquefy just enough to penetrate the weave before cooling into a flexible, almost leather-like shell. The result was a personal relic container that could survive river crossings, monsoon-like downpours, and days pressed against a sweat-soaked body without compromising what lay inside. It would be easy to dismiss this as a sentimental craft project, but military historians and field psychologists alike understand something profound. The preservation of personal identity under extreme stress is not a luxury, it is a survival mechanism. Soldiers who maintained a thread of emotional connection to home showed measurably greater resilience in the face of sustained combat hardship. The act of producing the pouch itself, the slow, deliberate repetition of the stitch, the warm scent of melting beeswax cutting through the cold, damp air, was a meditative ritual in an environment that offered almost no psychological relief. Fieldcraft, in this sense, was as much about mental fortitude as it was about physical preparation. Veterans who documented this practice in post-war oral histories described the act of opening their pouch at night, holding a photograph by the fragile flicker of a candle as one of the most stabilizing rituals of their entire war. That small waxed pouch was more than waterproofing. It was an anchor. The technique kept more than paper dry. It kept men whole in a world that was doing everything it could to break them apart. For the modern bushcrafter, survivalist, or prepared adventurer, this technique translates with startling relevance. In a world of Ziploc bags and silicone sealants, we've forgotten that our ancestors produced genuine waterproofing solutions from first principles. Solutions that required no factory, no supply chain, and no electricity. A waxed linen pouch stitched with a modified sailmaker's stitch will outlast most commercial alternatives in true field conditions and can be produced with materials sourced from a single craft shop and a household candle. Beeswax remains readily available in most towns. Heavy linen or canvas can be salvaged from any worn bag or old jacket. A curved upholstery needle and waxed thread cost almost nothing. The technique scales perfectly, come from a card-sized photo pouch all the way up to document wallets, fire-starting kits, or emergency medication carriers. Every serious bushcrafter should have this stitch in their repertoire, not because modern technology has failed us, but because understanding the root of a skill is precisely what makes you truly self-reliant when it matters most. There is something quietly devastating about the image of a soldier bent over a scrap of canvas by fading light, stitching a waterproof seal around a photograph of someone he loves. It reminds us that survival has never been purely about fire and food and shelter. It has always been about what we carry with us, what we choose to protect, and the extraordinary lengths of human ingenuity we'll reach in order to keep it safe. The soldiers of the Second World War were not superhumans. They were mechanics and bakers and schoolboys who adapted, improvised, and endured, using whatever knowledge their hands could remember. Their fieldcraft was born from necessity and sharpened by desperation, but the techniques they developed are as sound today as they were in any European theatre 7 decades ago. That quiet, flickering ingenuity belongs to all of us now, if we're willing to learn it. That is the true mission of Fieldcraft Chronicles, to recover what time has buried and return it to the hands that need it. If this episode gave you something worth keeping, a skill, a story, a spark of inspiration, subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles so you never miss another piece of living history. Share this video with someone who values self-reliance, historical craft, or the art of being truly prepared, because the knowledge that kept men alive in the worst conditions in human history deserves to be remembered, and it deserves to be used. Welcome to the Chronicles. Stay prepared, stay curious.